I am here at a very special time in the process towards reunification of Cyprus. I think that I'm sometimes perceived as communicating too much of an optimistic message. And I think a lot of people, understandably, are saying this is too good to be true. It is simply not possible that the leaders suddenly have this wonderful climate, dealing with all the difficult issues and having progress every single day. It must be a setup. It must be some kind of a ploy to try to fool people, because this is not happening in Cyprus. Well, I'm a witness to say it is happening. It's happening right now. And I'm watching it every single day. Tomorrow I have the pleasure of hosting Mr. Mustafa Kinci, Mr. Nikos Anastasiadis once again at our premises and good offices, UN good offices in the buffer zone, Old Nicosia Airport, where we have our meetings. That is their 6th formal leaders meeting. The meeting tomorrow is the 6th formal leaders meeting. They have met a multitude of times, of course, in many different occasions, including, and I recognize faces from yesterday's event, organized by the two chambers of commerce, where they both had very bold and very encouraging speeches about the economic potential for United Federal Cyprus. But the formal leaders meeting, this is the 6th one. Remember that we just started. We had a dinner. There were 7 months of nothing. Well, there was a lot of things happening behind the scenes, but there was no formal communication since October until April. Then we agreed in early April that we were again able to hold meetings, but no meetings were held before the elections in the Turkish Cypriot community. As you know, the outcome was that Mustafa Kinci was elected and installed. And only a few days later, we had a very important dinner at Ledra Palace on the 11th of May, which led to the first meeting being held at the 15th of May. So this is moving forward with incredible pace. But that's just the leaders' level. Only to take the last 2 weeks. Since last Monday, a week and a half ago, we've had meetings every single day of the negotiating teams, either between the negotiators, which are most of the days, or at working group level. And I can testify that in every one of these meetings, we have reduced differences and improved the amount of agreement or strategic agreement that later will move into full formalized agreement. It's quite an experience, and I've been reflecting upon how come this is possible. The answer is, of course, very complex, and I'm sure I don't have the full answer. Maybe we have a better answer all of us together. But the short answer is that the Cyprus question is perfectly solvable. It's difficult, it's complex, it has long history, a lot of emotions, a lot of practical, a lot of conceptual challenges, but it's a perfectly solvable problem. However, in order to solve it, you need 3 ingredients that were not here. You need trust, genuine, sustained trust between the two sides and their leaders. And I say not only the leaders, also the two sides, the two communities. You need genuine will, and you need leadership. And those ingredients were not, for many years, were not in place, at least not at the same time. The 3 of them at the same time and in both communities. You probably always had a little bit of each, but the 3 things together on both sides is quite unique. Well, I'm still quite new to Cyprus, although I must admit I've been following the issue for many, many years. You know, this total immersion is only since over a year. But people who have followed it for many, many years, and I speak to a lot of people around the island and international observers of Cyprus, says that this is quite unique. This simultaneous existence of these 3 factors is quite unique. It means, in turn, that the 2 sides, that means the leaders, the negotiators, negotiating teams, and the people helping them, have changed the attitude from one of defending their positions against each other. So, slightly caricature. We have a meeting. I have not changed my opinion since last time we met. Have you? No? Okay, meeting is over. Until an attitude of solving problems, which means you and I disagree. That's a problem. It's a joint problem. We have to solve it jointly. It's a completely different attitude. And that's sort of the key ingredients of what is different now. Now, I'm saying here, and I've said in other occasions, that trust, will and leadership on the elite level is super important, but it's not enough. It's incredibly important that Cypriot society, Turkish Cypriot, Greek Cypriots, engage, express their opinion, think about this, engage, deal with it, write about it, speak about it, and organize cultural events. Because all leaders, I have been many years in politics myself, I know that strong leadership also requires support, engagement, critique. You need to interact with the broader society. And I think this is really the time which is urgently, immediately important, at least for those of you who think reunification is a good idea, that people actually engage and support, but also expect from leaders, expect and discuss the different issues. I also want to say something else which we have been discussing quite a bit actually lately in the talks that I'm chairing, which is the dilemma that we all feel. And I'm happy to say, all of us, the negotiator leaders, everyone, this dilemma. We would like to be much more open on the substantive progress that we're making, because we also know that it would be better not only to say we made progress, but to say progress on what. But we're also aware, and we have to say what trumps that is that we must not risk the dynamic development of the talks by some particular issue being taken out of context and then being capitalized upon by people who don't want a solution in order to say that must be a red line, we demand immediate clarity on whether you really said that, and that you create a dynamic that I think many of you may have seen in previous occasions. However, we do want eventually to move into a space where we can be more open and of course led by the leaders, because this is a leader-led process. I'm there to support them, I'm not there to drive them, force them in a particular direction. I'm there to support them on behalf of the UN Secretary General, and that's the relationship we have, but this is a sense that we really have. But a couple of things I want to say. There is a real and genuine understanding at leaders level in the negotiating teams, and I hope and I believe increasingly so in the communities, that we will not solve the Cyprus problem if the two sides do not recognize the inner and deep concerns of the other side. If you're not able to understand that you are not the only ones with grievances, and you are not the only ones with bad memories, you are not the only ones who have suffered or have family who have suffered, that you are not the only ones who have concerns about what will happen in the future, it won't happen. So it's perfectly legitimate, I would say even the right thing to do, to stand up and be honest about your own concerns and grievances and challenges. But I think it's only legitimate if you simultaneously are willing to accept that some of those exist on the other side. In reverse, but the same concern. One person's fear does not imply that the other person also feels some kind of fear. And that is also some of the change I'm feeling in what I'm seeing, hearing. Many surprisingly positive statements about recognizing that a shared trouble history is a shared trouble history. It's not the trouble history of one side against the other. It's a shared trouble history. And there's no need to kind of decide who suffered most or who was the worst. It's simply to recognize that there's something out there. You don't have to say that the others, had more trouble than you. It's just to recognize there's something there that's of paramount importance. That's happening. That also means that the crucial issue of political equality, that we end up with a genuine federal structure in which there are two constituent states with clear powers, with clear competences, clearly defined, but in something which is a federal structure, not a confederal structure, and where the federal capacities are full, understandable and clear and shared is imperative, and we're working exactly in that direction, because that's the direction the leaders want to go in. If anybody suspects any of these teams to try to do anything less, they're wrong. I can assure you that's what we're working to do, that's what they are working to do. Secondly, I want to share something, and I know I can because this came very clear out yesterday from the leaders, so I'm not saying something new, but I'm just underlining a point that came very clearly through the two public speeches of yesterday, but which I would say essential theme in our discussions. The new United Federal Cyprus doesn't have a name yet, just a placeholder for whatever name the leaders choose or people choose, but the new federal country will be a European Union member, of course, we all knew that, but there is a full 100% agreement about the European Union character of that state. Not 50%, not 90%, not 95%, 100%, which means that European principles will apply throughout, which means that European acquis is essential, which means that the ability, not only in theory but in practice, that the full state must be able, the federation must be able to work as a well-functioning European Union member, with all that implies. And I think one of the reasons that that is so clear now is that the leadership that is currently in place in both countries are genuinely Europeans. It's not because they have to, it's because they want to. I also want to say another thing, which is maybe I should admit with some help from us, but there is now a very rapidly increasing understanding that you need to discuss the economic elements of a settlement. Economic elements of settlement have two dimensions. One is popular and well known, that somebody has to help to pay. Now that's an old thing. And one thing Cyprus happily agree upon is somebody else should pay. And I actually think that's quite fair. So all Cyprus and me think that somebody else should pay something. But there's another element to economy, which is economy is not only about spending money, it's also about creating money and creating wealth. And there is, in my view, and I still have two jobs, even if most of my time now takes place in Cyprus and the World Economic Forum. Of course, from that perspective also I'm seeing that there is a tremendous potential in the United Cyprus for a number of reasons, but one of them being, well, it would be one economy rather than two, so that's an economy of scale. But also because if anybody had any investor or economic operator was concerned about sort of geopolitical consequences of engaging in Cyprus, they will at least be significantly reduced through settlement, because then you have clarity on the future of the state. So I think will be a very attractive destination, also because Cyprus, after having some rather tough experiences over the last years, where I know a lot of people was personally heavily affected by, is also now moving out of this in ways which I think other countries, not mentioning any particular country, but other countries could learn something from. And that's also a very good starting point. And here comes the point. These economic opportunities do not simply happen. They have to be prepared, which means that we also now, and I think that's a theme which was not been so much present in previous rounds of intents, to make sure that the new construct is fiscally viable, is economically sound, is modern 21st century prepared to capitalize on that potential. And another point I keep making, which my friends in the negotiation normally likes, if they probably sometimes think I'm over-insisting on, but which is, I'm very happy if they agree, but I also would like to check that what they agree upon is a modern 21st century solution, and not simply a replica of old debates that were held many, many years ago. Because after all, if we succeed, and I still say if, because obviously we're not there, by all means, there's a lot of work to do. If we succeed, at that date, it will be the most modern constitution in Europe, by definition, because it was just made. So, technically, it's obviously the most modern. But it also has to be the most modern in content. I mean, you cannot make a constitution in 2015 that looks like it's written half a century ago. So, because countries fortunately do not write constitutions every week. So it's going to last for a while. And that's also very important. That's why I think a debate, what I see the contours of is an ability to have a discussion in Cyprus, not on what do I get and what do you give to them and what do you get, but what do we, Cypriots, you Cypriots, I'm almost becoming Cypriots, what do Cypriots themselves, yourself, actually want the state to look like? Beyond quotas, beyond that kind of arrangements, and how is that solution also viable in a fiscal sense, but also we're in the Art Center also able to really exploit and build on the enormously rich cultural heritage, which is very special. And I you all know that because you probably all like your country, but I'm as a foreigner say that there's a lot of interesting countries in the world, but the richness and the variety and the traces of everybody who's been here and the way all of this has been integrated into something very special is something to be incredibly proud of. And of course, in my European liberal attitude, it was much more fascinating to live in a country that is genuinely diverse. Rather than trying to make my country as monocultural and similar as possible. So, this is really a cultural wealth, which I think is good for those who live here and good for those who come here alike. So, I'm ending there and then opening for questions. I deliberately did not say exactly where we are in the talks, because I can't, and it's unfair, and I will wait till the leaders are ready to say exactly that. I probably still said a little bit much. But what I'll tell you is that this is for real. This is a real opportunity, and it's beyond opportunities. I'm always wondering, to be very honest with you, I'm always wondering, is there something we didn't think of that can derail this process? Maybe. I'm sure you all have that concern. And it can still happen. But for every evening going home after excellent meetings between people who like each other, who work together, who are partners, who still disagree, but to disagree respectfully and to reduce the disagreement because they think agreement is better than disagreement, I feel it's less probable. And that's why I'm insisting on keeping up the pace, structuring, organizing the talks with my excellent team of people who are here and experts who we bring in to help, to facilitate, to think, maybe sometimes think out of the box, sometimes ask a slightly different question than those that have been asked over the centuries. And what I really encourage you, if you want a solution, because it's a free democratic choice, of course you can vote no if you like, but those of you, and I suspect some of you are here, who would like a solution to happen, it's time now to really engage yourself about not only saying we want a solution, but what solution do you want? Because you have something which very few people in my political career before I came here, I worked a lot of conflicts. I basically, in most of my jobs, has been studying and working on trying to resolve conflicts and sometimes failing, occasionally having a positive impact. The world is full of trouble. This is not... the world doesn't look very nice these days. The neighborhood you're living in does not look very nice in either direction. Either you go east or west. Doesn't look particularly nice. It has to be a factor. It's not only about... let me be very frank with you. The smallest problem you have is the other side of the island. Of everything else you should be concerned about, I'm not sure if the concerns are directed in the right direction. But for that very reason, grasp this opportunity, and I think it will be good not only for everybody living on this beautiful island, but also for the entire neighborhood and for the world.